Hi there, I'm Krista Daniels, a naturalist with the Elkhart County Parks Department, and we're going to talk about food today. How many of you like to eat food? I do. Now, do we all like the same kinds of food? No. Some of us really like pizza, and some of us really like tacos. Some of us prefer salads or fruits, and that's fine. But we all have to eat, don't we? We all eat for the same reasons. It's to get energy. Have you ever felt completely wiped out, kind of super tired? You just could not put one foot in front of the next. You felt like you had to lay down, or like you had a really hard homework assignment and your brain, it just felt like, it's not working. And you just got up and got yourself a snack, and then you felt a lot better. That snack or the food that you ate gave you just the right amount of energy to get through the task that you had, whether it be walking somewhere or vacuuming at your house or jumping on the trampoline or getting through that tough homework assignment. Food provides energy that we need in order to do everything that we do, including blinking your eyes, including swallowing, talking, even standing up and keeping your balance, just like I'm doing now. We need energy, and we get it from our food. Now, what about animals? Animals, like wild animals, might be fox, it might be birds, it might be rabbits or mice. All of those animals also need energy, don't they? They have to do things like us: run, jump, they have to hide, they have to chew, they have to blink, they have to breathe. All of those things require energy. And so the animals that live around here in the wild, we're going to talk about what kind of foods they need and learn a little bit more about the process of energy getting from one animal to the other animal. We're going to start out with a fairly simple example here of how energy is transferred from one animal to the other, because we already discovered that they all need energy, right? And they get it through the food that they eat. So let's start with this example right here. Right here I have a rabbit. This is called an eastern cottontail rabbit, and we've all probably seen these around. They're very, very common. And a rabbit is what we call an herbivore. An herbivore is the grouping of animals that they all eat plants. That's the main part of their diet. Now, a rabbit, the plants it eats are probably different than the plants we eat. We might eat salad or fruits or tomatoes or other vegetables. Now, a rabbit probably would like those things, but they find other things out in the wild, like dandelions or clover or just grass or even the underbark of a tree. They sometimes chew on that, and it gives them the energy that they need in order to do what they need to do. Now, on the other end of things, we might see an animal that eats something different. For example, the possum that I have over here. The possum is an animal that doesn't necessarily just eat plants. So it's not really an herbivore, but it also doesn't eat only meat either. It eats both, a combination of both. A possum is what we would call an omnivore. Omnivores eat both plants and meat, depending on what they can find, what's available, but they're built to do just that, okay? And then the other end of the spectrum would be something that eats just meat. So we have right here another animal. This one is a barred owl. They are definitely a carnivore. They catch their food, eat meat, so that meat might be a squirrel, might be a mouse, a little vole or a shrew, it might even be another smaller bird, depending on what it can catch. But it's definitely a carnivore or a meat eater. So we now know that all animals require energy, and they get it from eating food, not always the same food, but different foods. So herbivores, omnivores, and carnivores. Now, let's look at an example of how they relate to each other out in nature, because some of these animals are what we call predators and some are prey, and they get their energy from each other. Okay, so we talked about the rabbit, right? A rabbit is something that gets hunted by lots of other animals. Therefore, we call it a prey species. A prey species is hunted by many things. In this case, the rabbit might be hunted by a fox, might be a hawk, It might be even your neighbor's dog. They try to hunt them at least. But we'll look at that owl again. The owl is definitely a predator to that prey species, which is the rabbit, meaning that it hunts and it kills the rabbit for food. It is a very, very efficient predator, built for speed and silence so it can sneak up on things, as well as the rabbit is built to try to get away. It has great camouflage, it is fast, and it has great big ears to help it hear the owl coming too. So we have predator and we have prey. When they transfer energy from one to the other, it's in a chain, kind of like a line, called a food chain. Food chains are all around us, and sometimes they're really short, sometimes they're really long and extensive, going through multiple living things before they get to the very end, which would be the decomposition part of it, where they break down and then turn back into the soil for the plant to grow something new. Now, let's look at another example of this. Another example of a food chain, would be, we always start at the beginning, and that would be a plant. Plants are called producers because they produce their own energy from the energy of the sun, water and soil, and carbon dioxide. They go through a process called photosynthesis. It makes their own energy. Then an herbivore, like that rabbit, might come along and eat it. Now in this case, it might be an earthworm in the ground, eating through the rootlets, it's eating through the soil, and it's getting its energy it needs that way. And then there might be an animal that comes along that's gonna get its energy from that worm, like the robin. Probably many of you have seen robins too. This is a very, very common animal that we see in our yards. The robin is going to eat that worm, getting the energy it needs from the worm. Now, what do you think might eat this robin? I know of an example, and let me get it up down here. This is a bobcat. Now, a bobcat is not super common here in Elkhart County. However, we do have lots of other cats though, don't we? Sometimes house cats or feral cats that just live outside. They do catch a lot of birds, and it's not a very good thing, but it does transfer that energy into that new animal, that different animal. So the bobcat might see that robin that now has the energy from the worm, which has the energy from the soil in it, and then it can get the energy through that chain into itself so that it can then do what it needs to do. It can run, it can jump, it can swim, it can do all sorts of things, now having enough energy to do that. This energy flow that's flowing through these food chains is prevalent everywhere around us. In every ecosystem, in every habitat. Think about woodlands. You have all sorts of producers. You've got then the things that eat them, like the herbivores. Then you've got consumers, which would be the omnivores or the carnivores that eat the others, and that energy is flowing. Now, think about a wetland. It happens there too. You might have mosquito larvae that are feeding on the algae. That's a plant, that's a producer. Those little mosquito larvae are eaten by maybe a small insect that lives in the water. That's then eaten by a small fish, eaten by a bigger fish, then maybe even caught on a hook by a fisherman, and then you might even eat it. And so the food chains are flowing, the energy is flowing through those chains, and you are sometimes a part of that chain. What I'd like you to do is to think about another way to look at food chains, and it can have to do with what you just ate today. So think about the most recent meal that you had that you got energy from. It might have been breakfast, it might have been lunch, it might have been supper, and I want you to think about what was it that you ate and how did that food come to be. So for example, I had a ham sandwich today. Okay, it had ham and cheese on it and bread. Bread, do you know what that came from? What's the main ingredient in bread? It's wheat. Wheat is a plant or a producer. It gets the energy from the sun, it produces its own food, and then I ate it and got energy from it. Now what about the other components? So the ham, do you guys know where ham comes from? It's pig, and it's meat that we get from pigs. So the pig itself got its energy from where? It got its energy from the food that it ate. probably some kind of meal or corn or grain of some sort. That grain is a producer. It got its energy from the sun. Therefore, it went through the food chain and got to me, where I have used its energy today to do this video. Even the cheese gave me energy. So if I think about it, where did the cheese get its energy? Cheese is made from milk. Milk comes from a cow. Cows get their energy from what? From the grass or the grain that they have eaten. Grass and grains are producers. Those are all things at the beginning of food chains that got their energy from the sun. So it transferred through those food chains to me, and now I was able to have energy to lead you through this discussion and talk about food chains and the energy flow that happens within them. Now, you give it a try. Think about what you ate. See if you can trace it back to producers and how the energy flow started from the sun through the producer, and it transferred into the lunch or supper or breakfast that you had today. Even write it down if you want to, but think about how that energy is giving you what you need to go through your day. Doing a hard homework assignment, jumping on the trampoline, maybe singing a song or playing your violin. Any of those things require energy, and we get it through these amazing food chains that we are a part of and that are around us all over the place. Thanks so much. Had fun teaching you and talking with you today. I hope you enjoyed the video.